Hello everybody, we're back. This is the continuation of the stream from earlier today. I don't know how much time I'm going to have this afternoon, maybe an hour or two. But I was pretty excited about where we left off. The first stream took quite a long time to get to this point, but you know, the beginnings of an Aurora campaign can be a little slow if you set it up that way, and that is kind of the way we set it up here. So for the benefit of a future audience watching this on YouTube, if you maybe skipped ahead and didn't watch the first video, or if it was too long and you wanted to see what's going on in the second video, let me just do a brief recap. We have started a new campaign. I started the campaign in 2050. It is now 2066. And this is a campaign where we're not trying to play as optimally as possible to beat the game. Aurora 4X is kind of a game where you have to tell your own story, and the story we're telling is of a Earth that, after recovering from a sort of third world war in, let's say, the 2030s, reduces the population by a lot, and then makes this breakthrough in physics, trans-Newtonian physics, uses it to revolutionize its industry, and then sets out into space, primarily because the supply of these trans-Newtonian minerals is running low on Earth. And so we're looking to expand our available sources of TN minerals. And so the first things that we did were to survey the solar system. We also set up colonies on the moon and on Mars. We then started some terraforming projects. We have successfully terraformed Mars, and we're now working on terraforming Europa. And the reason we've prioritized those two systems is because we found some pretty significant mineral deposits, uranium mineral deposits on Mars. And we've also found some good deposits on Mercury, but that's a lot harder to colonize. We've got also some interesting deposits on Europa and Ganymede, the Jovian moons. In particular, we have some solid thorium deposits here. Not a lot of gaseous thorium in the gas giants, so we're going to be relying on these solid, sort of solid old-fashioned thorium mining to get us going here. So we've colonized Mars, Luna, and 2 of the Jovians. We might colonize the other 2 Jovians later on, but they don't have any mineral resources, so there's no urgent need to do so now. We are transitioning our research operations over to Luna, just because we needed to give the people of Luna something to do, and Earth had a bit of a worker shortage. We have had a focus on researching sort of the construction and infrastructure type of technologies, so we've made a lot of progress in that department. But recently, a radical new young scientist, our first power and propulsion scientist, Gemma Johnston, had this radical new idea about jump point theory, the notion that we might be able to access different solar systems instantly without having to travel the many light years that separates them. And so we researched that theory, and we even researched all the other components required to make a jump drive to travel through such jump points, but we have to find the jump points first. So we've designed a number of ships to help us do that. Well, actually, we've designed one ship to help us do this. Now let me hide the obsolete ships here. I said, let's hide the obsolete ships. Oh, I didn't toggle that one as obsolete, that's why. So let me show you some of the ship designs that we're using. So this is one of our brand new designs. This is a commercial vessel, a geo-survey vessel, but it's equipped with a commercial jump drive, so it will be able to go and survey other systems once we discover them. We have the Columbia-class terraforming base. This is a massive 1.5 megaton base. The first one has been in operation for a number of years, and it terraformed Mars, and it's currently terraforming Europa. and the second one is on the way. We've got the Ethiopia-class tug, which is our largest ship that is not the terraforming base. And it is just a pile of engines, and it is used to move around the terraforming bases. We've got the Sri Lanka-class Grav survey ship. This is our latest design, and we'll be building these shortly. It is a very small ship, 1,000 tons, so it's considered a FAC, which means you don't need to put a bridge on it. And that space savings is enough to fit the bare minimum that we need. So a grav survey, which is 250 tons, a jump drive, which is 250 tons, an engine, which is about 200 or 250 tons, and then some fuel, some engineering components, and some crew quarters, enough so that it could probably operate independently for about 4 years on a survey mission before having to get overhauled back at space dock. Our older designs include the Turkmenistan-class freighter and the Zambia-class colony ship, about 40,000 tons each, commercial vessels with large, slow, efficient engines, and we have the Uruguay-class troop transport. All of these with the NPE-7 means that they were updated from our initial engine technology, which was nuclear thermal engines, were updated to nuclear pulse engines. With a fuel efficiency modifier of 7. That's just so I can keep track of what's going on here. Let's take a look at our colony. So we have Earth, which has a population of 670 million, up from 500 million at the beginning of this campaign. We've been gradually expanding our industrial base. We now have over 1,100 construction factories, 750 mines. We've got 100 fuel refineries, and a number of other things that you can see here. The labs, we still have a few labs on Earth, but we've been transitioning them over to Luna. We've got about, let's see, there's 16 here, about 25, 30 labs total. As you can see, the population of these colonies is doing well. Luna was serving as a source of colonists, but has now been turned off and is back onto stable growth. The Jovian colonies are growing. Excuse me. Are growing, but their growth is limited by lack of space, lack of infrastructure. So in fact, I want to make this stable. I mean, I do want this colony to grow, but if it attracts more people, those people will just die off because there's not enough room for them. We're shipping all of the leftover infrastructure that is no longer needed on Mars to Europa to help that colony grow. But we don't want any of these other intrepid citizens of our civilization to just go and die in overcrowded conditions over here. We've got a few civilian mining operations set up on a few comets and sort of asteroids and dwarf planets out in the Kuiper Belt and on Mercury. We're currently buying all of that output, and that is helping to fuel our demand for duranium. On Earth itself, as I alluded to earlier, we are rapidly running out of resources. Well, at least we're starting. The accessibility now, it's starting to get harder and harder to mine these minerals. And in a number of years, we'll have completely run out. And that is roughly the state of affairs. We have a number of shipyards. This is our newest shipyard, a naval shipyard designed to build this grav survey vessel. And we also have this massive commercial shipyard, which was used to build the tug that we have. We might build another tug later on. We've got a shipyard with 2 slipways to build our freighters and colony ships. And we've got another shipyard here that was used to build our troop transport. The troop transport was just basically ferrying our garrison battalions, which I think of basically as police units, to maintain order and security on our colonies. And then we have this last shipyard, which was used to build our original geosurvey ships, and now is being retooled to build the modern jump-capable geosurvey ships. Our current research projects include, I'm generally limiting my researchers to researching things in their own area of expertise, and we've sort of worked in a few fun narratives into that. So we are interested in biology. We want to increase our terraforming rate, so no need to come up with a special reason for Kate Grant to be researching terraforming. Billy Porter has been our main scientist for most of this game. He's been responsible for researching most of our advanced industrial capacity. But he's sort of the old school, and he is competing for attention and for lab space with Gemma Johnston, who is our propulsion and power scientist, who has moved to the moon. And I see the moon now as kind of like this researcher heaven and haven, I guess, where people are free to research whatever they want. In particular, we don't really have any need or reason to research any sort of military technology. We had some researchers who are really into that, though. So, for example, Samuel Hope is really into missiles for some reason. And earlier on, we just really needed somebody to research an engine technology before Gemma Johnston came along. And so we had to convince him to do it. And he did it for us, but his condition was that afterwards he'd get a lab and he could do whatever he wanted. So he helped us out, and now we've given him a lab, and he's been working on missiles ever since then. Why we would need missiles? I mean, who knows, right? Similarly, Ben Goddard, also a very accomplished researcher, has a thing for shields. So he's been working on these crazy shield ideas for a while now, because he did a favor for us earlier on. Robert Miller, generally working on sensors. Now there are sensor technologies that have civilian applications, and recently he was tasked with the important project of researching the gravimetric sensors that we are about to use to try to find jump points. So he's got a bunch of labs to his own, and he's just improving our sensing capabilities. We have a logistics expert, Sam Cooper, also played a key role in developing some miniaturized engineering components that we are using on the Sri Lanka class Grav Survey ship. And now he's got a little lab of his own. So, we've got sort of competing scientists competing for the attentions and for the resources and the funding necessary to take on their projects. In terms of our current industry priorities, we're constantly investing in capacity expansion for our industry. So we've got about 30% of our capacity devoted to more construction factories. In fact, let me boost this up. Same thing with the mines. And we've got some continual financial center growth. This is something that I feel is it's actually, if you're trying to play strategically and optimally, it's not a bad idea to have a bit of financial sector growth. I also think in terms of the lore and the story, it does make sense. There's a bit of a greedy aspect to this civilization where we're really in it to this industrial revolution. This new industrial revolution has has helped everybody to prosper after the cataclysm of the last few decades, but now this is also fueling demand for these new materials, and so there's a lot of speculation and a lot of investment is needed to fund all these crazy projects to go get these new materials, these new minerals all over the solar system and perhaps beyond. And we're building our second terraforming base, which is almost done. It'll be done next year in 67. So that is that. I think. Well, so let's get going again here. We were doing. I don't know what that was about. That must have been new freighters that were built. We've got some freighters that are that are moving infrastructure from Mars to Europa. We are but in a matter of time, we will have... Actually, did I queue up the ship? I'm not sure if I did that at the end of the last recording session. We have... yeah, we did. Okay, so we're building our first graph survey ship. We're going to have to complete the graph survey of the Sol system, find any jump points that are there. In the game settings for this campaign, which I didn't talk about, there are 4 jump points coming out of Sol. I've also set the difficulty multiplier to 250, which means any NPRs we find will be a little bit boosted compared to normal. So they'll just have more population, more research done, and stuff like that. And we'll also have a... and I also set the chance of enemy NPR spawning in a new system to 75%, up from 30. So we're very likely to find aliens in very soon. Okay, so Billy Porter here has completed some research. Now, we'd implied that he wasn't super happy about it, but in order to get funding for his continued industrial science projects, he had to make them appear to be relevant to the latest fashion, which is all this jump point nonsense and all this surveying. And so he is now offering to improve shipyard expansion and shipbuilding capacity. So he's doing that. And in the next few moments, we're going to start the grav survey of the system, and we'll confirm where our jump points are, and then we'll go and explore those jump points. Now I've set up, if you're playing this on your own and you're playing somewhat, if you're trying to play well, then before you go and explore the rest of the galaxy, you probably want to have some kind of navy or military technology. We're not doing that because that would be fun. So we're going to naively just go to other systems because obviously the resources there belong to us. Who else could they belong to? And we'll see how we react to the possible presence of other alien civilizations. I wonder how long... I should have checked what the exact build time on these ships is, actually. It's June 66. Let's look here at the shipyard tasks. It's almost done. 90. Another 2 more. The other shipyard has also been retooled. So, this was our shipyard that we had used to build the first geosurvey ships. Now, I'm pretty sure that it's going to be cheaper to just build new ships, but I think we're going to go and refit them just because it's more fun. Oh, no, it's not. Huh. Okay. Well, I stand corrected. I thought it would be more expensive to refit them. The game gives you a warning. If refitting the ship is going to cost like a significant portion of what it would cost to just build the ship from scratch, then it's usually smarter to just scrap the ship and build the new one. But in this case, it seems that we can go ahead and rebuild and just refit the old ships, which is what I wanted to do anyways, because for nostalgic reasons, I would imagine our United Earth would want to preserve these first spaceships that set out to explore solar system, and now we have built the first grav survey ship, the GV Aurora. Something has just occurred to me. So, So in the game, there's a difference between commercial vessels and military vessels. Now, in that, the military vessels take upkeep and maintenance, and there's a whole game mechanic associated with that. And in particular, we need maintenance facilities on Earth, which we do not have any of, I believe, because I decided that we wouldn't need any because there was no notion that we would need to maintain a military. So how do we introduce the concept of a military if we haven't yet fought or encountered any aliens? Well, I think that we would say that this grav survey project and the idea of, going beyond the solar system is something that sparked, a lot of imagination and has really piqued the curiosity of the citizens of our civilization. But it's kind of like a very... it's a project that's being tightly controlled by the top echelons, I think, of the government to make sure that we don't screw this up. And so I think there's some kind of special division. In other words, like this geosurvey, the freighters, it's kind of... we're kind of... The government is kind of directing a lot of the, tasks that need to happen, but a lot of it is just happening. These are all commercial vessels, so we're kind of like... There's a private sector which is doing things on its own, but these commercial vessels, I feel like we're directing them, but we're kind of subcontracting a lot of these jobs. But this grav survey technology is a little too touchy. We don't want it to fall into the wrong hands, so we're not just willing to subcontract this out. We're doing this on our own as a dedicated branch of the government. And so I think this is the prototype, the initial version of what might later become our Navy. And so as such, we need to develop our own special facilities to maintain these vessels, which we need to queue up right now. So let me free up some production capacity here. Let's tune this down and tune this down. And let's get some maintenance facilities. Now we only need a few. Maintenance facilities, because the ships that we're building, well, first of all, the ships that we're building we're actually going to send out. Oh, I need to queue up another ship. I totally forgot to do a few things there. We're actually, the ship's actually going to be sent out. They're not going to just hang out in orbit, so they don't need to be maintained really initially, but it doesn't really make sense to send out ships if you didn't have the capacity to maintain them in orbit. And we're going to need to repair them later anyways. Okay, so first of all, we need to queue up another one. So let's do that. And let's make sure that I actually gave it orders. Okay, I did give it orders. Good, I'm not completely crazy. And we built a few more freighters. Let's go assign those to the cargo task group. The Brisbane and the Bristol. There's a task group called Soul Cargo over here. You can go join that. This is the task group that is moving the infrastructure from Mars to Europa. Right. Okay, let's resume. Oh, I wasn't paying attention, didn't realize the game had hit an interrupt. There are interrupts for a lot of different conditions. One of the more annoying ones is civilian ships that get built and things like that, which we don't really care about too much. So this is our inner solar system. of asteroids. Why don't I turn... I'll turn these asteroids off. And the display here. Oh, actually, I was in the correct display submenu. Let's turn... We won't turn off all the asteroids, but let's only keep the asteroids with minerals. I don't think it registered that click properly. While it's processing the turns, it can struggle a little bit. There we go. Alright, just to reduce a bit of the clutter on screen here. So you can still imagine that there's an asteroid belt here, but only a few of the asteroids actually have minerals. Actually, we don't need these geosurvey points. There. That sort of cleans things up a little bit. Alright, and here's the Aurora doing its survey. Its grav survey of the system. Alright, we completed the maintenance facilities. We built 10 of them. Each one gives 200 tons. Each one increases the ship size that can be maintained by 200 tons. So now we can maintain up to 2,000 ton ships in orbit, which is more than enough. That was just a bit of, not an oversight, but something that we had to address now that we are, in fact, developing these special ships that were not really comfortable letting the private sector operate. All right, now, any moment, honestly, we will be discovering the first jump point. And I think that we go through it right away. So Robert Miller is making progress in his sensor tech. So a lot of this technology in sensor tech is really relevant for military development. But conceivably, things like thermal sensors, you know, just generally improving the quality of our sensors. These would be sort of just search sensors. Seems like a legitimate endeavor that he would pursue, right? We'll speak of the devil. So here's our first jump point. Okay. So I think in the history of this civilization, this is a momentous occasion. And in fact, I bet that we're not going to wait to complete the grav survey of the Sol system. I think we go right through right away. Because, I mean, guys, we built these ships to find jump points. That was the whole point, and we found a jump point, so now we're gonna jump. And we're gonna see what we find on the other side. So, here we go. This will be the crew. Oh, we should, hang on, alright, we'll take a look later, but we should take a look at who's on board. I'm very curious. Okay, and this is very interesting. Okay, so first of all, before we get into this, let's take a look at the GV Aurora. GV Aurora, Agent J. John, commanding officer, who is, let's take a look at it. Let's see what he's all about. So I renamed I created sort of a custom military hierarchy here of titles, kind of somewhat inspired by the United Nations in the sense that I made the top rank the Secretary General, but then we kind of improvised on the way down. So our ranks are Specialist, then Agent, Coordinator, Deputy Director, Director, Secretary, and Secretary General. So we have Agent J. John. Agent J. John, who is 24 years old, He was born on Earth. He's in excellent health condition. He was promoted to specialist in 63, made agent in 64, and then he was chosen to be the captain of this vessel because of his specialization, which includes a survey bonus of 11%. He is a born leader, calm, methodical, and observant. Fantastic qualities, I think, to lead this first vessel, this first ship, out of the solar system. So, J. John, what have you found? Oh boy. Alright, so first of all, this new system has been named Tokyo. These naming, so I'm not using the real solar systems. I'm using just kind of made up ones. And the reason is that allows nebulae to possibly occur. And those have interesting properties, and I wanted to play with those. Now, let's... and so the names that are given to the systems are based on the theme. And the theme I have for this game is just the nations of Earth, so it tends to pick, like for the... You might have noticed that the names of the ship designs are all names of countries, and it tends to use names of cities and stuff like that for these systems. And I think that's appropriate thematically. Okay, so let's look at the system here that we warped into. So the jump point is located here. It is about 3 billion kilometers, sorry, from the center of the star, from the center of the system. To give you a reference, like Neptune is about 5 billion kilometers from the sun, so this is like Neptune. So this is kind of like Jupiter, Saturn, and an inner system here. So let's actually just open up the system view here. So this star system is a trinary. There are 3 stars over here. We've got Tokyo A, which is the central star that we're looking at. Oh, excuse me, I have a message. All right, we're good. And it's about 2.5 times the mass of the sun. Fairly luminous. And then we have another star, Tokyo B, which orbits Tokyo A, and we have a third star, Tokyo C, which orbits Tokyo B. And in fact, we can see that. I'm just going to move this over for a second. We can see that over here. You can see Tokyo. This is Tokyo A. Then we have Tokyo B over here, and Tokyo C orbits Tokyo B. Now, Tokyo B orbits at about 20 billion kilometers. That is pretty far. It is reachable. You have to have ships with a fair bit of endurance to make it all the way out there. But we can get there. Now, this is very interesting. So we have 3 stars. So let's look at what's going on around Tokyo A. We've got a gas giant, a terrestrial, then a gas giant, and another terrestrial, and then a bunch of asteroids. If we look at the orbital distances, again, Earth, remember, is at about 150 million kilometers. So, these are all further than Earth. But we have a few interesting planets. So, for example, there's a moon around the first gas giant, which is in an ideal sort of temperature range. So with a surface temperature of about, this is about 51 Celsius. Now, why is it so hot? Hang on. Let me zoom in here. Let's zoom into the system. Oh, I thought it was much further out. Okay. Yeah, there we go. But so here, let me show you, we can do this way. We can put in rings to more easily compare the orbits. So here's Earth's orbit, okay, or Jupiter's orbit. I don't know why it's not centered. That's a little odd. I guess it centers it on my cursor. So this first planet is sort of between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter. The reason it's so hot there is because this star is much more luminous. So that explains that. So that means that there's a moon orbiting the first gas giant where it's 51 degrees centigrade. Now there's no atmosphere, but that is not too hard to terraform into something habitable. Now further out, we've got this terrestrial planet with a surface temperature of 22 degrees. The gravity is a little heavy, but still manageable. And the only issue, really, is that there's some fluorine in the atmosphere. But if we remove the fluorine, this would be practically habitable. Now, it is a fairly large planet, so the terraforming... In this version of the game, the terraforming is pretty streamlined. In the next version that's going to come out soon in March, the size of the planet is going to have a huge impact on the speed at which you can terraform it. But this is a very easy planet to terraform for us. Now, this is actually an ocean planet. An entirely the planet is completely covered by oceans. But in this version of the game, I'm not actually sure if that is a problem. I think we can still just colonize it. We'll have to see. But this is an interesting prospect, and we'll have to do a geosurvey, obviously, to see if there's anything worth mining here. We've got the other gas giant, has some terrestrials, which are, have reasonable temperature ranges, but this is pretty cold, so getting this habitable is going to be a little tricky. And similarly, this planet out here, which has a much more reasonable water extent and gravity, is also a little on the chilly side. It might take a lot of doing to make this habitable. And then we have a bunch of asteroids. Now out here, surrounding Tokyo B, we have a number of terrestrials. Unfortunately, these first ones are so close to the planet, to the sun, to their sun, that it's like 1,000 degrees, so that would be impossible. However, there's a super Jovian with a number of moons, and the moons seem to have very comfortable temperatures, so they could be potential colonies, including a terrestrial moon, which even has an atmosphere of mostly ammonia and some methane, so we'd have to get rid of those gases, but still, that's interesting. And it's got a bit of a hydrosphere, so that would be an interesting candidate as well. And then there's a number of asteroids surrounding Tokyo B. And then the tertiary star, which orbits Tokyo B, it itself also has a number of interesting planets. Now, some are very close and very hot, but there's a number of planets here. I mean, 100 degrees is very hot, but we could have some anti-greenhouse gas. We could change the atmosphere to make this work. Anyways, a lot of interesting planets here. And then there's also a gas giant with moons, and then a ton of asteroids. Now, this is all well and good, but what we have discovered... Oh, and there's also some Lagrange points here. Now, Lagrange points are a thing in real life, and they have nothing to do with what this game says they do. In this game, they're like instant warp points. So, actually, this LP connecting to that LP, I forget if they're fixed, but that would allow almost instant travel out there, which is really cool. Now, here's the thing. Our sensors detect not only all these wonderful planets, but they also detect a bunch of stuff that, the game is calling wrecks because we know that they're ships that got blown up. But what would we think that these are? Is what I'm wondering, right? What would the civilization think? We have limited sensors. There's something going on. I think there's something going on Tokyo C4. Excuse me. There's something going on here on Tokyo C4. Let's bring back the menu here. Okay, Tokyo C4, this terrestrial planet with a nitrogen methane atmosphere where it's 15 degrees, there's a bunch of stuff in orbit, and I think at a minimum we could conclude that it is not natural. There are some kind of metallic structures in orbit, and that is pretty exciting, but also pretty freaky. So the question is, what does J. John do? Was it J. John or John J? J. John. What does J. John do? Okay, so he's a born leader. He's calm, methodical, and observant. So what do you think somebody who's calm, methodical, and observant would do in this situation? I think because he's observant, I think he's curious. I think he wants to know. I think he wants to know what's going on. So I think he's going to head in closer to this Lagrange point. And we're going to jump there. And that'll be the first step. I guess I should mention another. So one thing that isn't a built-in mechanic of this game, but we're seeing everything kind of in God mode. But there are all these jump points, and you can stabilize them later on. And so it's not clear like how communications happen over long distances. Like if a ship was 5 jumps away from home, can it still communicate with home? And I think it can't. I think you can communicate like through maybe one jump point. But that's it. So I think that if we're in this system, we can send a message through the jump point to the system, to a system next to it, but we can't transmit any further than that. So I'm going to say that within the limits of, light speed communication, that the Aurora is able to relay all this information pretty much in real time back to Earth. But it could not do so if it was 2 jumps away. In that case, we're going to have to set up like sort of sentries or I think if we stabilize the jump gates, then that I think would act as an effective relay, and then we can transmit the signals going, throughout the jump gate network. But I think at this point we can relay, in this situation, we can relay information back home. So the United Earth has just discovered this, and people are going ballistic. People are going nuts back home. Important decisions are going to have to be made about what do we do about this. But those decisions are committee meetings that have to happen. I think the first thing that actually probably ends up happening is that we're going to just bring this into day jump increments here, is that the Aurora is going to slowly approach. Actually, I could have made this 5 days. All right. The Aurora is going to slowly make its way into the Tokyo system. And as it does so, its main engines fail, but fortunately we're able to repair. We're able to effect repairs. We have 52 MSP left. And we only needed, it cost 5 of our spare parts to repair the engines. We have 42 left, so we're doing fine. J. John and his crew, a little nervous. As he makes his way into and past the primary star of the system. Now the second in the meantime, the second Sri Lanka class vessel has been completed on Earth. And I think that it is ordered to... what would be the order? Because normally, in terms of gameplay, I would just continue serving the Sol system. But if there was a second ship, would you send the second ship also into the Tokyo system to see what's happening? There's no point, really, right? I think... yeah. I think it continues with its original plan, which would have been to just continue the grav survey of the solar system. Because I think it's reasonable for for this civilization, to have determined that there may be a number of jump points in and out of the Sol system. And this is only the first one that we've discovered, and there may be more. And if there's some kind of alien stuff around one of the planets here, then it might very well be that we are surrounded. And we need to know that, if that's the case. Okay, our freighter fleet has finished moving all the infrastructure on Mars to Europa. Now Europa has 30 million people, but it can house up to 37 million, which is not a lot. But this infrastructure's effectiveness is going to grow as the colonization cost goes down, which is going to happen as we warm up the place a little bit. But for right now, I think the cargo fleet can just chill. Let's have them go back to Earth, refuel, and chill out for a bit. Okay. Actually, well, we're going to use a different cargo fleet for this, but we've got some research projects that are finishing. So, on Earth now, we had a few more research projects that I was hoping were going to finish so we could move those labs to the moon, and they finally have finished. And what those are... So first, I'm going to create a bit of space for these researchers on the moon temporarily. So one of these was Kate Grant, who is improving our terraforming technology. So she's just going to keep doing that. You go do that. And then we had our little missile man, who's got a little acolyte, Catherine Nelson, but we don't... Well, okay, so actually this is interesting. So now there are aliens, right? So Samuel Hope, who's been working on making explodey things all his career, is like, see guys, we need to be able to kill the aliens. Now, of course, everybody's like, dude, we just found some stuff in orbit. Maybe this is an ancient civilization. But I think this is enough for him to get funding to start to develop a more comprehensive militarized missile system, or at least the beginnings of one. And so we've researched some missile, like, explodiness. We need to make some we need to develop some other aspects of this component. So we'll get started on that. We'll change the number of labs assigned in a moment, because what we need to do is we need to move these labs that they were using on Earth to the moon. So let's do that. We're gonna move like I think 6 of these labs. That ought to do it. So let's get him his labs. Okay, now let me readjust this, because I don't think he gets that many labs to begin with. Maybe we're going to get a few more here in the biology department. Okay, whatever. This is fine. Again, the moon in this context is a bit of a... there's a bit of a free-for-all going on in that it's sort of... all the scientists have flocked there. They're researching whatever they want. Oh, let me make sure I have enough population to run all those labs. Yeah, not quite. Okay, we need to move some people over. Let's get... we've got some calling ships for that. We'll just do it ourselves. We don't need to rely on the civilian sector for that. Let's get... where are my calling ships? Sol Colonial. Earth. Load colonists. Moon. Unload colonists. Repeat. We'll do that for a little bit. Okay, our geo-survey ship is complete. Our first refit is done. So let's actually... First of all, let's skip the second refit. Managed shipyards on Earth. Hancock Steel. Refit the Amethyst. Now that means the first one that was done was, I think, the Amber. Yes. So the Amber can now jump to Tokyo, and it can start its geo-survey of this system, which is very exciting. The first geo-survey to take place in about a decade, I think. So that's pretty exciting. Okay, now what was I saying earlier about... Oh, yes. I'm just going to turn off auto turns, because we've got the colony ship going back and forth. Zipping back and forth. Oh, we got interrupted here because the Aurora finished its jump. And I think it's going to go see what's going on. So I think you're going to go to Tokyo C4. And see what's happening. Let's actually focus on the Aurora here. Center map. Okay. I'm actually not auto-turning because I want to keep track of this population transfer here. So I'll just do a few more clicks. Actually, I'll go back to 5-day turns in just a second. After this industry click. Alright, let's do a few 5-day turns. I just don't want to accidentally ship like 100 million people from Earth to the Moon. Alright, let's see how we're doing now. Yeah, see, it transfers pretty rapidly. But we can do like another month easily. Let's do that. And that'll give the Aurora time to close in. Now, you know, we actually don't have any onboard sensors. We have graph survey sensors, but we don't have actual sensors for looking at things, which everyone is painfully aware of. So that is something we'll definitely have to explore, I think. But I think that is something that might become apparent as we approach the planet itself. How are we doing here? Okay, 54 million. Yeah, we still need to... Oh, wait, how many people can we handle here? Like how much... Our infrastructure can only handle 56 million. So we can't... yeah, we can keep this going a little bit, but not too much. Let's see here. Not population. Oh, 55.6. Okay, we'll do one more 5-day increment of population transfer, and then we'll stop. Meanwhile, Ben Goddard has finished Gamma Shields. Good for you. Although everybody's happy that we've got all this shield stuff, I think Ben Goddard's allocation of labs is going to diminish here, because there's a renewed interest in sensor technology, I think, and being able to detect things at a distance. I think, J. John here has been ordered to approach cautiously, and he's willing to do it, but everybody wished we kind of had long-range sensors to figure out what was going on. And Robert Miller, meanwhile, our sensor tech, is like, I told you so, guys. Look at all this tech I've been working on for so long. So, yeah, okay, so let's, yeah, the moon is full. Let's stop this Sol colonists. We can stop doing that. So we're short a little bit of lab workers, but that just tells us that we can't transfer any more labs to the moon until the moon's population increases. How are we doing here? Let's focus on the Aurora again. Almost there. Another 15 days or so. All right, let's zoom in. Okay, so it appears... So here's Tokyo C. This is the star. And here's its tiny little solar system. Now, in fact, like, this is actually sort of the orbit of Venus almost, right? So it's actually... This is like its own mini solar system. And let's see what happens. I'm just shortening the time intervals here to 1 day. 1 day, another day. 8 hours. 3 hours. Okay. So, I mean, I knew that this was going to happen. But the people in this world had no idea it was going to happen. Okay. Oh, shit. I accidentally clicked something after. I think I clicked another button. Okay, wait. Let's go back in the history. I hit the spacebar by accident. Okay, so what happened? Okay. We have no effective long-range sensors, but I mean, the ships can see stuff, right? And so as we got within, let's see, what is the distance here? As we got within 14 million kilometers of Tokyo C4, we detected some active signatures. Now, let's take a look at what we saw here. We saw three different classes of ships. Let's go to the intelligence screen here where this gets kind of automatically filtered. So, we found a new race of aliens, which we're calling the Tokyo aliens because we don't know much about them yet. These aliens have there are a few different ship classes that we've found. One we've renamed the Pete Retief, one is the Liu, and one is a Hai. Okay, we have seen all three of these ships move at least 6,100 kilometers per second, which is very fast. I can tell you that is pretty fast for NPE tech. That is very fast, so this is probably beyond NPE tech, or they have a bajillion engines. And that's all we know about them yet. I guess the other thing that we know is that they have sensors. And we are being... there are active sensors here. So they have active sensors that are able to... Well... on the order of 250 million kilometers, but we can actually see their parameters here. So it's a S126R100, resolution 100. And so the Liu has these smaller ones, and then the Retief has these bigger ones. And does the Hai also have the bigger? Is that bigger sensor envelope also part of the Hai, or is it just another Retief? Can't tell. Hang on. Well, whatever. We'll find out soon enough. So yeah, that's happening. What's going on here? Here are the 3 ships, and they're coming towards us. Now let's look at the rest of the events. Right, so first we detected them, then they started moving towards us at this speed. That is a little scary. And I think that the appropriate human reaction is to say, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, run away. I did select a destination. So that is what they're going to do. That is what J. John of the Aurora is going to do. He's going to order a full turnabout. Unfortunately, he only moves at 800 kilometers per second. So he's going to run away as best he can. Let's see what happens. Okay. So let's go back and look at what happened. I knew this was going to happen based on my experience playing the game, but poor J. John did not know what was going to happen. Okay. As the gravitational vessel Aurora is turning around, all it knows is that it is being pursued by alien ships traveling at 6,100 kilometers per second. When all of a sudden, a missile impacts the Aurora, causing 9 points of damage. The ship has no shields. There's nominal shielding, which is just one layer of structure surrounding the entire vessel. So some of the damage is absorbed by that. Most of the damage goes to internal systems. Immediately, the grav surveys are knocked out and the engines are knocked out. So are some of the crew quarters. The ship is instantly screeches to a halt because trans-Newtonian physics are very weird. And 7 people are killed instantly. Another missile instantly follows. It hits another part of the ship. 2 of that damage is absorbed by armor. The fuel tanks are destroyed. The jump drive is destroyed, killing 5 more people. More crew quarters are destroyed. More fuel tanks are destroyed. And that is enough to cause a complete structural collapse of the ship. And the ship is destroyed and obliterated. And we lose track of the sensors of the ships that we were tracking. Now, this, I think for dramatic purposes, is relayed in real time with Earth. Like I said, I'm accepting that we can transmit information through one jump point. And so could you imagine if this happened right? Like oh, good, we can finally explore other star systems, right? We've always thought people were wondering, are we alone or not in the galaxy? First star system, we see some weird stuff in orbit. We go to check it out. Boom, destroyed by missiles. So, I think it is time for panic mode. So what's going to happen on Earth? Well, or I should say in the solar system, because, Earth is most of humanity, but there's a lot of people not living on Earth. So I think what happens is panic. And, I think obvious first steps include trying to develop some kind of way to defend ourselves. And there are a few options here. I think, let's look at what's available to us. And also, let's look at who is available to us. So we've had, in terms of game mechanics, in terms of protecting against missiles, there are two ways to go. You can go point defense, or you could go anti-missile missiles. We don't have any ability to produce missiles, but we can get that ability. We are missing everything. We need so many systems, so many components. So the question is, what do we focus on first? I think there are a few options available to us. We have made some progress in missile technology in general. So we could deploy missiles of our own. That seems, for now, to be the best solution as an offensive weapon platform. I think it'd be reasonable to complete this missile agility technology and then try to develop the best kind of missile that we can with the technology that we have. That seems reasonable. Obviously, these things are going to get, if not shut down, then turn to very low priority. I would say even these shields. Well, interestingly, the shields, maybe we do decide to double down on shields, but this is a long-term research project and we need some immediate results. Let's say we're going to prioritize these missiles. Now, Gemma Johnston, who is all about surveying and jump drives, her project is not going to get, is going to be practically shut down because we just need to develop a way to fight against that, and jump drive technology is not relevant here. Now, that being said, there is a role for power and propulsion tech. Better engines are always good, but it's going to take a long time to develop a better engine technology. But something that could be done right away would be engine multipliers to get our ships that are presumably going to go defend us to go faster, so we can have an engine power modifier here and increase that. So that is something that seems reasonable, that in a time of crisis that Gemma Johnston could apply herself to. Now, Robert Miller, the sensor guy, his services are going to be solicited because he's developed our EM sensor sensitivity, which is good, and our thermal sensitivity, which is good. But what we really need now is a way to target and lock onto these enemy aliens that have blown up our exploration ship. And that is active grav sensors. So we need to get some of that tech going right away. Meanwhile, on Earth, Billy Porter is finishing up some shipbuilding construction, which is actually not a terrible thing to finish. Now, that's going to finish in 2 weeks, so we're going to let him finish that. But afterwards, I think we're going to hand over his labs to some other projects. because I don't think there's anything really in construction that is going to help us immediately. So we'll let him finish this because this is relevant. We'll have to build some ships. Speaking of building ships, I mean, we don't even know, but we're going to have to build ships, right? So we're going to need some shipyards. So we need to rejig our industry here. So first of all, financial centers, we don't need you guys anymore. Research labs, we need immediate action, not more. I mean, yes, we need more research labs, but we can't afford to be building some right now. The terraforming base is going to be ready in a few days, so we are going to let it wrap up. Even these mines and construction factories, that is, capacity expansion for later. We simply cannot afford to do that now. So what we're going to do is we're just going to let a few last installations finish, and then we are going to reassign that production capacity. So right now we need to be making some naval shipyard complexes. So we are scrambling. We are going to see what happens. Chin Strapnel says F, capital F. Yep. I think that is exactly what J. John had the time to type into his terminal before his ship blew up. Okay, those are the immediate steps that we can take. And pretty much the only steps that we can take right now. Let me check quickly. I don't know if we were able to tell how fast the missiles were going. No, because we never kind of scanned them. We didn't have the scanners to detect the missiles. So we have no idea. Okay, so that happened. Let's resume. Okay, so Billy Porter finishes shipbuilding rate. Good for you. And again, this was happening on Earth. So I think Billy Porter is going to take a vacation. Because in here, we're not going to be relying on fighters. We don't really have the tech built up for that. There's nothing here that's a priority. Now, one thing that could be considered is, what about all these nutcases that have been advocating for energy weapon research the whole time? Certainly, there's merit to using either energy weapons or kinetic weapons as point defense. Regardless, we're going to need some. We're probably going to mount these weapons on turrets to increase their tracking speed. And so it's certainly reasonable to start this research. And if we choose to use lasers as part of the point defense system, then great. But if not, we'll definitely need the turrets. So we'll get that research going right away. So I can only imagine like what's going through, right? Like all the planning that's going on. Okay, we finished the second terraformer. Let's actually go deploy it. We had the tug, which was the Baltimore. Let's have it go to Earth, refuel, and then let's have you pick up. I must have not set it to name the ships properly, so we'll do that later. And head over to Europa and release the tractored ship. Okay. Now we can see about this. Well, let's just assign all of that production capacity to the naval shipyards. Okay, we have found a second jump point. Now the question is, here's the thing. I know that as a player, whatever lies beyond this jump point does not yet exist until I instantiate it. In terms of like if there was an NPR there, I don't think it exists yet. But logically in the game, that doesn't really make sense, right? So I think as soon as this jump point is discovered, we go through it to make sure that there aren't more aliens waiting to kill us over there. I think that's the only thing that makes sense. Oh, shit. And speaking of which, hang on. We sent a geosurvey ship through the other jump point. Hang on. We sent a ship here. We sent the GE Amber. It's just like, it's in the Tokyo system, just being like, oh, cool, I wonder if there are any minerals. Meanwhile, there are crazy aliens shooting missiles at us out here. These guys are not sticking around. These are private contractors. They're like, F this. They're heading right back to Seoul. I wonder what they did find in the time that they were here. It looks like they only surveyed some asteroids. Yeah, they only did some asteroids. Alright. Not much. Yeah, good thing I caught that. Okay, something that we're also going to need. Well, actually, let's prioritize. Let's get this these naval shipyards built. Incidentally, yeah, we're gonna need a lot of workers, and we don't have that many. So that's another thing to think about. Oh, I know what we'll do. Well, we'll do that in a moment. Okay. So the system that the other system that connects to Seoul is the Yaren system. Let's take a look at it. Looks like it's a binary, but this looks like a very long distance. Yeah, so it's a binary, but this secondary star is so far away that anything that's out there is just never going to be relevant to us. It is an absurd distance away. Yep. So let's look at what is not an absurd distance away. Okay, well, the jump point itself is about 5-6 billion out from the center of the star. There are Yaren 10 and 11 are actually pretty far out, 11 especially. Let's look at what is orbiting the primary here. So a little hotter, a little bigger than our sun, but not too much. These inner planets are just boiled to a crisp, charbroiled. We've got some gas giants with moons. There's a terrestrial here that seems to be quite close to habitable, actually. Some oxygen. A little heavy on the gravity side, but there's another ocean planet. Interesting. Got another terrestrial. A little colder, though. Not a great atmosphere. And then these other planets are, terrestrials, but they are so cold, I don't even think it's possible to heat them up enough to make them habitable. And then we got a ton of asteroids. But these asteroids are actually, all of them, look at the distance. They're like 80, 90, 100 billion kilometers away from the sun. So exploiting them is just not feasible. Okay, so we found this system. There are no signs of any aliens. Now, I'm saying this, of course, I haven't looked at the planets themselves. There might be an actual alien civilization there, but we're not going to bother checking. Like, we did a quick scan. We're like, oh, no aliens here. We're going to turn around. And maybe I'm right. Maybe there are no aliens. Maybe maybe this system is teeming with aliens. We're not going to bother to find out. Or I should say, the United Earth. Oh, the captain of the GV Cancer. Actually, I'm curious who's captaining this ship. The GV Cancer. Oh, let's see. The Cancer is captained by Agent Catherine Wade. Okay, so Catherine Wade is like, no aliens here. Time to head back. Does that make sense for Catherine Wade? What's she about? Catherine Wade. Courteous, determined, and no outside interests. All right. That's her deal. So, I'm not sure why she got this position, actually. She doesn't seem to have any, like, it's a graph survey vessel. She doesn't seem to have any bonuses for that. Anyways, she's determined. She wanted to get on a ship, and she got the position. Good for her. Okay, we've actually just finished another graph survey vessel. So let's have it continue the survey of the Sol system. And we'll keep producing them because we do accurately surveying all exits, all entrances and exits into the Sol system is now of paramount importance for the survival of our race. Okay, Robert Miller has completed active grav sensor strength 10. So we need... So let's look at what that could give us. You know, let me go back to... hang on, let me go back to... no, that's not what I wanted. All right, let's go back to the Tokyo system. And just zoom in on the disaster that happened here. So they were able... We never got a good read on the size of their ships. But we know that whatever these wrecks were, and who knows what this is, right? And now that we think about it, those ships were firing missiles. These might be wrecks of other alien ships. So, like, does that mean there were many aliens and these aliens were fighting the other aliens? Like, oh my god, mind blown. So, we know that some kind of alien race built ships of roughly this size. And they got shot down by these guys. So, you know, if we were completely naive, we would say, well, these are potentially reasonable sizes of ships. And their sensors, we were able to roughly determine were... I remember... Well, they were... I roughly remember what they were at. Let me see what we can make now. Just a search sensor. Like, we have no idea the size of these ships, but we're going to assume they're kind of that size. So let's say we were going to look for the smaller ship. I don't know, this size, right? Oh no, their size, their sensors were resolution 100. I remember that. And they were like resolution, like in the ballpark here. So this is roughly the sensor capacity that they had. Yeah, it was in the 200 millions, in fact. Now, this is an outrageously large sensor for us because we have garbage sensor technology. But that is kind of the range that we're operating in here. Now, we don't know the range of their missiles or of their targeting systems, but they didn't fire on us. They didn't detect us until we got pretty close, but that's because our ship was tiny. Our ship was only 1,000 tons, and so their sensors could only detect us when we got within range, which was about 10 million kilometers. So presumably there's a sweet spot where if we had a small enough ship, we might be able to get within range and, you know, deliver some kind of offensive payload. So we don't know what size ships they were. We have no idea, in fact. Let's assume that they were similar in size to that. So that gives us... That means we could detect them from a bit further away. Now, the problem with having big sensors is that people see you. They see your big sensors. So, in theory, we just can't do much better than this. We just have terrible sensor technology. So we could make a sensor that could find this kind of ship 100 million kilometers away. Now, until we turned on our sensors. They wouldn't necessarily see us. And then we could just kind of move as close as we can and then turn on our sensors. We also should consider having some pretty big passive sensors. So let's develop all of these in tandem. So here's an active sensor. This would be like our main search sensor. Let's create this research project. The problem is if we activate this sensor, it lights us up. So we need a way to roughly pinpoint their location without being seen ourselves, and that means we need passive sensors. Incidentally, we are going to need a missile fire control if we're going to shoot anything at them. The fire control should have a similar range. Which is to say about... there we go. I'll make it a bit bigger. All right. We need passive sensors. Now, let's see. The sensor strength, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, so passive sensors. We're going to have some passive sensors here. Now, how big? You know, I think we need to build a variant of the Sri Lanka class fast attack cruiser, which is serving as our grav survey ship. I think that would make sense. I think the leaders in this case would be thinking about... It's a platform they're familiar with, right? They know they can build a ship. And they can pack a sensor on it that's roughly this size. And this will just be a passive sensor. And so I wonder... Now, I don't know how... This has an EM sensitivity of 20. How far out will that detect? Will that detect the kind of sensor that we were looking at? Hang on, guys. I need to pull up the formula here. Okay. An EM detection sensor can detect emissions at a range of EM sensitivity times 1,000 kilometers times the signature strength. Okay, I need the signature strength of... If I had an active sensor... Hang on, no, I need the signature strength. Sorry, I'm just reading this on the other screen. Okay. The signature is equal to the active grav sensor strength times the size times the resolution. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so the size. Okay, so we were... Hang on, let me bring back this page here. Okay, so we were estimating that they might have a sensor similar to this. Of course, we have low tech, but you know, let's just say ballpark, right? So the formula here is the active grav sensor strength, which is in this case 250, because that's this is roughly the range that they were operating at, times the size, which in this case is 25. So we're already at 6,500, times the resolution, which is 100. So 6,500 times another 100, 6.5 million, right? Let me make sure I got my zeros right. So this times 100 times 25 is 625. Add 3 more zeros to that. 625,000, not 6 million, 625,000. And then okay, so the signature of this is going to be like 600,000. And let me go back to my EM sensors. Wait, passive sensors, where was that page? I was just there. What was it called? EM sensors? Maybe that's what I searched for. Just wanted to confirm the formula. Because I'm not sure if I'm going to multiply or divide. Well, what would make sense? So if it's 600,000 and my passive sensor that I'm designing here has an EM sensitivity of 20, then the higher that number, the further away I should be able to detect them. So let's multiply those two. That would mean that I theoretically could detect their active sensor emissions from 20 million kilometers. That seems about right. Okay. And I can get within 20 million with that small ship. And that is the key. So that's a really tight window, but I think we can do it. All right, so if my math is correct, then this passive sensor is going to be strong enough to detect their active sensors at a range of about 20 million kilometers. And their active sensors cannot detect this size of ship, which is going to be a 1,000-ton ship, unless I get within like 13 million kilometers. So there's a window here where I could use this ship to find their ships without them seeing me. And that is going to be the plan. Okay, I've got to wrap up the stream now, actually. Gotta go prepare dinner and stuff like that. But this has been pretty exciting. So we found aliens, we got totally wrecked, and now from scratch we've got to develop some kind of system to counteract them. So we have some ideas in terms of how we're going to detect them without us being detected. And the idea would be to use a few kind of passive sensor facts, right, to scout ahead to try to pinpoint their location. And at that point, we would have our military ships that have active sensors, but those active sensors would be off. And then we would turn on the active sensors to get a target lock, and then fire ordnance. And only at that point would they become aware of us, and only at that point would they be able to fire back at us. So we still need to have, missile defenses, and we're going to have our own defenses, but it means that our engagement range can be much closer, right? And we'll have to see the size of ships that we go for, but I think we have to go for small vessels to try to get in as close as possible within their to kind of beat their long sensor ranges. So I'm thinking about sort of ships smaller than 5,000 tons, just like a few missiles, and that's it. So that's going to be it for now. I'm gonna, so we're gonna wrap up the stream here, and I'll probably stream again later this evening. So let's say in about 3 or 4 hours, I might continue the stream, and we'll see if we can come up with some kind of system to defeat these aliens. Honestly, unlikely with our level of technology, but we'll see what we can do. So I'll see you guys then. Take care for now.